Hey everybody, welcome back. We're gonna do Artboard 2 now. So like in the first video on this page here, it's not there yet, but we went over Artboard 1 and introduced the program, Illustrator. So now we know a little bit. We're gonna know a little bit more here. We're gonna go over the pen tool, the shape builder tool, and the Pathfinder panel. And then there were a couple things in here that we didn't go over. So if you watch this video, we need to address a couple of these things like isolation mode and the eyedropper tool. All right, that other video was 20 minutes long. This one should be shorter. So I'm going to go back over to Illustrator. I got my file open here. I'm definitely going to hit Control S, right, to save my work. And we're going to slide over. I'm going to zoom out a little, press Z, and then click and drag to zoom out. And we're going to talk about the pen tool. So the pen tool, it can be a little frustrating. If I go over here to the pen tool and I click and I pull out all four of these tools, I actually am not going to be using these ones here. So like if I have the pen tool, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to press V, select this square, zoom in a little bit. And then if I have the pen tool, you could see like I can just draw a shape, right? But the add anchor point and subtract anchor point tool, like so if I'm on this, see like when I go and put my pen tool over a path, it automatically becomes the add anchor point tool. So I could add anchor points here if I needed to. And then if I go to an anchor point, you can see it becomes the minus sign, so I could delete anchor points if I want to. And then this other tool, we'll talk about it in a minute. And adding and subtracting anchor points using the pen tool is much better than if I use the direct selection tool. And if I get rid of this anchor point, if I click on it and then I hit delete, oops, let's do that to a square here. So like click here and then I hit delete. You can see I did delete that. It does look like a triangle, but this is no longer a shape. This is just a path. Right? So like if I give it no fill, you could see all this is that path right here. So I'm going to undo that. So that's why if I wanted to make this into a triangle, I wouldn't just delete this anchor point. I would press P for the pen tool and then click on that anchor point when I see a minus sign. Now I have a triangle shape because there is a path right here. All right, I'm going to undo that. I'm going to press V for the selection tool, and I'm going to delete this little triangle. And so how I use the pen tool to trace and draw things, because remember this is a vector program, and we're going to make some abstract art here in frame 1, which I'll just use frame 1 here. What I can do here is I'm just going to close that out. Grab the pen tool, and then if I click and click and click, 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 it's going to automatically fill based on my starting point and ending point, right? So if I click over here, you see I get like, it's that here. And this goes on forever until I go back to the original starting point. So I have a little circle next to my pen. That means I'm making a closed, oops, see now I don't. Right there, it's a closed shape. So now I just made this into a closed shape. If I click on the pen tool and then I want to just stop using it, and I just click enter to get out of this, I just made a path, right? So like again, if I press V and I select this path and I get rid of the fill, you could see that it's just a path, right? That's going to matter later on when we start messing with shapes and paths, but for now you just need to know like I can create just a path or a closed shape. And then you might not want these. I'm going to undo that, so it's this again, and then I'm actually going to deselect that, and I'm going to draw with a different color now. And then I'm going to go back to the pen tool. Now I could also click and then click and drag, and this gives me smooth anchor points. Now clicking and dragging, and it works the same way, but now I could make curved lines here. And this is going to be good when we try to trace that cloud. Okay, so then I'm going to close that shape. And then if I want to adjust this, I can go back to the direct selection tool, click on these points, and then adjust it here. Or I could click on this curved line here, and I could grab the curved line and adjust it too. And that's basically how you use the pen tool. Now, the other tool, that's the anchor point tool. So like if I draw a square or a rectangle here, again, this is made of 4 points, and they're all corner points, right? Because the path abruptly changes its angle. Now, if I use this anchor point tool, I could take a corner point and I could pull out the handles to make it a smooth anchor point. Or I could go to a line segment that is in between two corner points, and I could pull the handles out of that too. So that's what the anchor point tool does. I'm going to delete that. But I don't ever use that because if I'll show you how I'm going to use this when we trace the cloud. So again, a lot of times using Illustrator to create logos, or maybe a client gave you like this cloud here. This is not a vector file. See, it's pixels, so it's not resolution independent. Like this is dependent on, I can't make this really, really big, right? So if they wanted me to print this cloud logo on a 6 foot by 4 foot banner, I would have to make it into a vector first. And this would be really easy. One way I could do that is with the pen tool, just tracing it. And I'll show you how I'm going to use this anchor point tool in a minute. So to do that, I would just click right here where there is a curve, the edge of the curve here, and then I'll probably hold shift and make a point until the other curve. And then I'm going to not go all the way here. For this one, I'm going to go into the middle and then click and drag and try to replicate that curve. And then the next one here, I'm going to do the same thing. Replicate that curve. But now you see, like, when I pull out one handle, the other side, it's like a seesaw. Like if I pull that out, the other one goes out too. So now I can't really go and draw this point. You see, like I do that, now it looks weird right there. So I'm going to undo that. What I can do though is hold the Alt key. So again, like if you're trying to do something you forgot, just try the Alt key. Might help you out, right? So now I could grab this handle individually while I'm holding the Alt key and move that, I don't know, right about here. And then they go back to my pen tool. And then actually I'm going to hold Alt again because I pulled that out too far. I'm just going to pull that out right about here. And then I'm just going to click here this time and then hold Alt. And see, it's not exact, but I could go back in with the direct selection tool later and fix it. And then I'm going to hold Alt. That allows me to click on this handle and then move it. I want it to be kind of perpendicular here. And then I'm going to grab this point here and do the same thing, match this curve. You can see I'm pulling this one out really far. I'm going to have to adjust that later on. That's okay. And then hold Alt again and move this handle right here and bring it in a little bit. And then I'll click on this last point and I've got my cloud shape. And now I do need to edit this. Again, I made this look kind of easy. I've been using Illustrator for 30 years. The pen tool does have a high learning curve, so this can be a little frustrating. It may take a few tries, and if it's not perfect, that's okay. But mine isn't perfect, but I could make some quick changes too. So I'm going to go to the direct selection tool by pressing A on the keyboard, and now I'm going to click on this path, and that gives me these two handles. So now I could mess with these individually, and I probably want to see the cloud behind it. So I am going to click on the entire object with the selection tool and then change the opacity to about, I don't know, 50%. Another thing I could do is get rid of the fill. So I'm going to do that and go back to the direct selection tool and then click on this point here. And I can see this is probably the one I want to mess with. And then I'm going to go just like so, right? And then you can see I do a couple more changes here, maybe this one a little bit. And then a little down. And then move this one here. And I've got a pretty good job of this cloud, right? And then I'm going to select it again with the selection tool and then change the opacity back up to 100%. And again, that's going to take a while, so pause the video, try this out, maybe rewatch how I created that. And just so you get a really good understanding of how the pen tool works and how to use the anchor point tool by holding Alt to make shapes that change direction like this here. The second thing we're going to go over here is the cloud tool. And before we do that though, I just want to really quick go over isolation mode. So a lot of times, like, isolation mode is really good if you have lots and lots and lots of shapes here, like an intricate graphics, you're illustrating this crazy illustration and you need to edit one individual shape. But a lot of times, like, I'll accidentally triple click on something. Now if I triple, quadruple, like button mesh a little bit here, you get this up here. So right now, I can't edit anything on this file besides this one shape. I'm in isolation mode. Again, this is very useful if you have a lot of shapes that are overlapping, but it can be kind of a pain in the butt if it's not. So like, to get out of isolation, if you accidentally triple click or you see this, you can't do anything, to get out of isolation mode, you just click in this arrow right here a couple times, and now I'm back out of isolation mode. And then one other thing before we get into making the second cloud is the eyedropper tool. So the eyedropper tool in Photoshop is pretty straightforward. I click on a pixel and that becomes my foreground or background color. In Illustrator, it's a little different. So like if I like the way this shape looks and I want this shape to look the same, I would grab the selection tool, select this shape, or select the shape I want to change, right? So I want to change this to look like this. And then I would press I for the eyedropper tool or go to that tool. And then once I click on this, you can see it's going to adapt the same fill, not the same pixels here. So like if I click on this here, you see it gives it that fill and the same stroke amount. It's not changing the stroke, but it's giving it, so this has a 0.1 stroke. You can see now it has a 0.1 stroke. If I click on this circle, you can see that circle has a 0.5 stroke and it's green. This has 0.5 stroke and it's green. Okay. That's how the eyedropper tools. But this palette here, this is pixels. You see if I zoom in, you can see like these are pixels. So if I click on pixels, it's just going to adapt, like I press I for the eyedropper tool. Whatever I have selected is going to take on that color with the fill. And it eliminates the stroke too. So now when I click on this, you can see it adapts the stroke again. And that's how the eyedropper tool works. And now we're ready for the shape builder tool. This is one of my favorites, and this you can see how like this is how I built this cloud and then locked it and created it into one shape. So another way to create this cloud too, the way I'm going to do cloud number 2 is by adding a bunch of shapes together. So like this is on my hidden layer, so I'm just going to show you what this looks like. So if I unlock the hidden layer and then I'm going to press V to select everything. Now you can see like this is made of a bunch of ellipses and a rectangle to make this cloud. So once I draw these shapes, or you could practice with me here using the shape builder tool, I'm going to lock the hidden layer again and go back to layer 2. Again, I'm going to click, drag, I want the ellipse tool. If I just make a couple overlapping ellipses, and I want this to have default stroke and fill. Select these, delete them, default stroke and fill. Ellipse tool. I just need some that overlap here. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to the selection tool and then click and drag so I have all 3 shapes selected. You can see how like when these overlap, I've got other shapes where these paths intersect that are created. But these are not, all that I have right now is 3 shapes. If I want to take this shape in the middle, that's where I can use the shape builder tool, which is down here. And now like as I go over this, you can see how it's graying out certain areas wherever my mouse is, and there's a little plus sign. So if I click right here, I just made that into its own shape. I cut that out of all 3 circles too. So if I go back to my selection tool, click off, you can see like I've permanently changed these shapes, right? So I wanted this shape, I got it. But it also cut out of all the other shapes. Another thing I could do, again, I'm going to make sure I have everything selected, go back to the shape builder tool, is I could click and drag and kind of combine shapes into other shapes. I can make this all into one if I wanted to. See how it's one giant shape now. And then the last thing, if I hold Alt, right, I could eliminate. So I don't want this triangle here. I could hold Alt. It becomes a minus sign. Now when I click, it gets rid of those shapes. So say I just wanted this shape. I want to get rid of everything else. I could hold Alt and just kind of like minus all this other stuff. Right? And that's how the shape builder works. So now, if I wanted to recreate this cloud, I would grab the ellipse tool and kind of start drawing ellipses. And again, you're not going to get it perfect, so I'm going to have to go back and move these around, right? I just want to have the right amount there. Oh, that one's way off. I'm going to delete that one. Here, I'm going to hold Alt to expand from the center. I'm going to do the same thing here. After I start moving it, I'm holding Alt. That allows me to expand from the center. And then I do need one right here to cover this area. And then I'm going to go and grab my rectangle tool and kind of draw a rectangle tool at the base. And this is where you would definitely want to be zoomed in here. And again, I'm using the hand tool a lot in Illustrator. And I would go to my selection tool, and this is where I could kind of like move these around. And use the arrow keys too to make subtle changes. I'm not going to go through in the video and move these all exactly, but now that I have these, maybe I am. No, I'm not. All right, so The selection tool, I'm going to select all of these things here. And I could use the shape builder tool and combine all these just like this, right? But this does take a lot of work, not a lot, but like I have to go through and go over every tiny little shape that was created. And then it's going to create my shape for me, right? Oh, see, I missed a couple spots. So I'm going to undo that. There is a much easier way. If I have them all selected, there's a panel called the Pathfinder panel. So like if I have multiple objects selected, my properties panel is going to show me like a lot of the things that I need. And this is the Pathfinder panel, which same as Photoshop, all the panels are under window. I could go here in their alphabetical order and click on Pathfinder. And then I could kind of trial and error if I want to just specific parts. It's based on which one's on top and which one's on the bottom. But this one here unites everything. So I just click once and I've created my cloud. And let me just double check. And that's it for Artboard 2. Again, from Artboard 1, we use the eyedropper tool. So the goal here would be to make something in frame 1, cloud 1 and cloud 2. And then in frame 2, you're going to make another abstract drawing with the things that we learned. So like this is where I could start using shapes. Maybe I want to have some cubist work here. And then I can start changing the colors. And then I'm going to select all these shapes. And then maybe I want to delete some of the parts with the shape builder tool by holding Alt. This could look really cool actually. Alt, boop, and then boop, boop. No, not that one. That one. And then now if I reverse these so they have fills, oops. I press V so they're all selected. Now I could flip the stroke and the fill. Now I got something crazy looking and start adding color. Then I'm going to make some more art. And that's all, folks, for Artboard 2. So we were halfway there. We got through Artboard 1 and Artboard 2. You guys are starting to really learn Illustrator. Keep up the good work, and I'll see you in the next video.